it's really missing in men's advice, I think, because typically the role models that we've had, I mean, our father's generation didn't really have the best mental health framework and paradigm to operate in. The people that held them accountable were quite often doing so pretty abruptly and in ways that are probably not so socially acceptable now. But it is really important, and I think you've spoken a lot about how important it is to have someone in your corner to keep you accountable, who can see your blind spots for you and who can call them out and say, hey, look, like here's a bad habit you slipped into, or, you know, here's something you said you weren't going to do, but you fell back there. And I couldn't agree more. And I've experienced, you know, the lack of having this sort of oversight in your life from good people, whether it's family or relationships. I think it's really important to be able to build that in an intimate partnership. And it's hard. What are your sort of go-to tips and tactics on how men can build these types of accountability dynamics with their partners in intimate relationships?
Can't do it with anyone else until you do it with yourself. I have this belief that is becoming more and more clearer with every conversation that myself and the team continue to have with men, is there's this massive trend in people, not just men, but people learning and consuming content to become more woke, to become more aware, conscious. And they're learning so much information about what it is that they should do, what it is that they need to, how they need to act, how they need to think, how they need to behave, what they need to do with their time, their morning routine, their diet, all this information. And this chasm that's been built between their level of awareness and their level of self-accountability and leadership is significantly lacking. So the bridge between what they know and what they're learning to what they are holding themselves to account to do is where I believe depression and anxiety lives. Because the moment when you become anxious or when you become depressed, it's usually because you know you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing. You just know. So it's like, I know I shouldn't be drinking. I know I shouldn't be smoking. I know I shouldn't be gambling and taking drugs and watching porn and doing all this and being abusive to myself and being abusive to others and not, you know, I know I should be spending time with my partner. I know I should be making those sales calls. I know I should be doing all my marketing. I know I should be doing all of this stuff, but I don't. And I'm here and I avoid and I am fearful and I know I should be waking up consistently. I know I should be going to the gym at a certain time. I know I should be doing all these things. So because I know it, but I don't live it, and that gap between that, there lies the problem that we're seeing. And it's like we have this massive challenge at the moment with women that are wanting men to step up and actually fulfill their duty and their role and responsibility of being a human being at one, but two, being a strong, healthy, masculine role model in the home life, but also collectively in society. But the thing that we're seeing is that there are a big, massive shift that men are talking what they're going to do, but not actually follow through with action. So then you have this element where men are believing that their work begins and ends with the epiphany that they have, that they've got a problem. And then when they go home, when they've had this new awakening and this new awareness that's been unlocked from going to a course or a seminar or a retreat or an event, the partner at home is then going, okay, I hear you say this and I hear you want to change and I hear that you've learned so much, but now show me. But don't just show me, don't just show me once. Show me consistently over time. I've been a culprit for it. Don't get me wrong, Angus. I'm not perfect, right? I know that there are certain elements where I've seen consistency and where I haven't. The element that I believe that a lot of men really can show consistency is aesthetically in their body, because they want to be seen as strong and seen as powerful. So they want to be fit and healthy too. So we see a lot of commitment in the health and wellness space, where guys go to the gym religiously, regardless. You could be working 14, 16-hour days, you'll still see guys at the gym because they seek comfort and safety in doing the work within their body. And then you see a lot of men then will commit to doing the work when it comes to making money in their business, because that's their livelihood. That's how they need to survive. That's how they need to provide. But the one element that we're obviously needing to discuss and talk about in depth is the lack of the emotional awareness at home, by being able to hold space energetically and emotionally for their family, their partners, their children. That's where the confronting reality lies for most men that don't want to do the work. That's where they're avoiding. So then they're saying that they're going to change, they're going to do something about it one day, but then when they actually have to have the hard conversations, they don't. And that's when we're having this issue of then women not trusting men not trusting men, people not trusting themselves. It's because we're becoming more aware with all of this access to so much knowledge, so much content out there. And we're like, oh my God, Angus is right. Curtis is right. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, okay, okay. What am I doing about it? Am I actually going to apply it? The applied knowledge is power, right? Knowledge is not. It's the applied knowledge. And it's like, how can we as a family unit, how can you as a partner of a man that is struggling, that needs to raise his standards, how can you as a man help raise the self-love and the self-worth and the confidence in your woman or in your children? You need to be able to understand the gap of where they are to where they want to go, but the awareness that they have to where they believe that they're at. And you need to be able to love them through their insecurities and their trauma and their pain and everything like that, to be able to help them build up. So for me, how would you have a conversation of something like that? Most of the time it is a very challenging conversation to have, because of the fear that I had when it comes to clients. It's the same thing. If I'm fearful that if I hold him to account, he's either going to be aggressive, he's going to be abusive, he's going to be avoidant, he's going to leave the house, he's going to go to the pub and get pissed. All these normal stories that we hear from women, it is apparent, it is real, it is true, it is happening, and it is something that we need to address and talk about. Is if we are then needing to educate women on how to communicate with their partner, to then be able to hold him to a higher standard and him to account. So then not only is he improving his standards at home, he's then also then allowing to then bring that out into his environment by becoming a better man in his business, to becoming a better man in society amongst his friends. And there's different levels of accountability, I believe, that is to be held. First one, there's three different. There's individual, there's team, there's organization. They were the three different levels of leadership that we were taught in the military. And the first one, if we were to think about the individual, the man, then he needs to be able to hold himself to a certain standard and to hold him to account for his shortcomings, his past failures, what he fears the most, and have enough courage to act upon that, have the tough conversations, make the hard decisions, and go through the temporary time of that discomfort of going to the gym and exercising and feeling your muscles get sore, or having some of those harder, more sometimes probably aggressive and combative conversations to learn about what you need to do better in your home life. Because honestly, does any person, let alone any man, really want to know where they're failing? No. We want to believe like we are Hercules. We want to believe like we are God's gift to our family. We want to believe, but believing and also living are two different things. And I feel like there is a lot of people that are so ignorant in truly the standard that they are living. It's not as high as what they believe. I truly believe that there needs to be a big slap across the face and a wake-up call to look at ourselves in the mirror and go, are we really cracked up to what we think? Are we really actually that good at what we do? Are we really actually that successful? Are we really actually fit enough and healthy enough? Do I know that I'm being the man that I need to be in the relationship? Look, the reason why I'm saying this, Angus, is I've seen this personally in my, not my own relationships, yes, but more in my family, with my upbringing, with my parents. The ignorance of what I had seen as a child, as a teenager, in my own household was like, how do you not see the problem? How can you not see it? But is it that we see it and we don't want to believe it, or we see it and we don't want to do anything about it? Because we can get away with not doing anything about it. We have this belief that most men will not make the change until it's too late. she's either already gone, she's already taken the kids, she's already taken half the house, she's already left, she's already moved on, before you've then woken up to the confronting reality that you had been failing her and failing your kids and failing your family in general for so long, that you knew about it because you were aware of the problem, because you had felt it, you had seen it, you were experiencing arguments, you were experiencing the disconnect, you became distant housemates, but you did nothing about it because you buried your head in the sand, you worked on your fitness, you worked on your finances, but what you didn't work on was your family. And for me, when we see men come through the door, they're like, I need to get myself back into my power, my strength, my old days. It's like, no, the old days of who you were got you to where you are now. We need to unlock a 2.0 version of yourself. Like, we need to completely rebirth you into a new man, melt you down into the forge to become sharper, stronger, harder version, but also to be an integrated person who can actually communicate and can hold space for everyone around you. And that's ultimately the mission on the back end of what we do. It's not to just push and test and poke and prod in all the areas of men's lives and relationships and business to show them where they're failing. It's to help them rebuild themselves into that next version that is able to then maintain and uphold that standard of what their family deserves, and obviously to continue to grow and scale their businesses so they can provide financially also. But for me, to have that conversation as a partnership is always the most difficult, because the assumption is that if I am to say anything, then it'll be used against me as a weapon. If I do say something, then it will then be used against me later down the track. Or if I say anything, then nothing's going to happen. And the unfortunate reality is, for what we hear in most relationships and most separations, the divorces with the guys and also the women that reach out, I've been trying to tell my husband for years to change. I've been trying to tell my husband that he needs to get back into the gym because he's putting on too much weight. I've been trying, how can I tell him without telling him that he's fat and overweight and he hasn't bloody seen his feet for years over his beer gut? Like, how can I tell him that? What if you just told him that? Like, what if you just did? Like, what do you seriously believe is going to happen if you just tell him straight down? If you don't have enough permission with your partner to be that brutally honest, compared to myself then having enough permission to then call him out, then what type of partnership do you truly actually have if you can't tell him or tell her the honest truth? Now, is there a tactical way, Angus, to be able to do that? Yeah, most likely. You don't want to be then telling him that he looks like, some of the words that come to mind are not very pleasant. But for me, I believe that there is a nurturing, soft, caring, loving approach that the feminine energy can nurture the masculine to bring him and step him up into his power. There's also then masculine, a game respects game, and sometimes a strong, powerful, masculine man can also bring that out in them as well. So there is a point to make around who are we surrounding ourselves with. There's a point to make around what choices are we actually making that are going to help us achieve the desired outcome of our life and our relationship and our business? Do we even know what it is that we want and how we want to live our life? And then ultimately, it comes down to the fact that, am I willing to lay everything out and risk losing it all for my partner to actually know the truth? So that for me is what I'd say about how to communicate and navigate that problem, because for me, in the home, the woman needs to hold the man accountable. But before the man is in the home, the man needs to hold himself accountable. And then when he's out in society, then other men need to hold each other accountable to a standard. And if we do that all together collectively, the society would be in a completely different position, because we then have healthy masculine men then wanting to then elevate and bring and up the collectiveness of other men. But then when they're at home and they've taken their armor off and they're not battling the battlefield of business and the war outside the home, they inside their own kingdom, they've taken their armor off and they feel safe, they feel secure, and they feel like they've got the family unit that they're there to protect and provide for, loves them and cares about them and nurtures them. Then sometimes you see in the movies that it's the queen that's giving the hard conversation. It's the queen that actually rules the kingdom. It's the queen that actually says, turn left, turn right, don't do an alliance with him, don't trust him. I feel bad about this. This is what I see. So, in a sense, it is actually the strength of the queen that is willing to be told, no, that this is my decision and this is what I'm going to do, but to still have a voice. It's to still be able to step up and to show up in full force in the strength, because the true power of the feminine woman comes from her essence of who she is at her core. And they're powerful, man. Like, they are very powerful. They are super powerful, but I believe what we're seeing at the moment is we are a civilization in humanity of a race and we're humans that have just, we've got amnesia. I swear we've got amnesia. Every generation that continues to be born, we're just losing memory of who we are and what our true power is. Men and women collectively are equally as powerful in their own right. And the more that we can understand that we're meant to be a team and a unit to fight together, then any war that's outside of the home can be won. Any war outside the home can be won. But if we're fighting a fight and fighting a war inside amongst ourselves, then there's no fight to be had outside. We need to fix what's going on inside ourselves first, so then we can show up in full force in our home to then build the kingdom, protect it, and then we can then fight any battle outside and win. That's my true opinion on that.